like what you're saying about the judicial system is interesting because for all this talk of needing to decolonize Hong Kong, the CCP is actually using a Hong Kong colonial era law called the sedition law to imprison a lot of these activists, because a lot of this the stuff that people are being imprisoned for happened prior to the national security law, or maybe it doesn't technically actually violate the national security law, so they're being arrested for sedition, which they're using in a much, so they kind of, nobody had been charged with sedition in Hong Kong since the 1960s.
Right.
And ironically, it was used to target communists.
Yeah, people who were kind of pro-CCP, like they had pro-CCP riots in Hong Kong in the late 60s, essentially, kind of tied with the Cultural Revolution. So some of the people who were the rioters had been like charged under the sedition law. And since then, no. Because Hong Kong moved more and more in the direction of free speech.
Well, what a lot of people forget is that the Chinese Communist Party is essentially a colonial power. Like if you consider what has happened in Tibet, Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang, like it's, and actually really in Africa.
I mean,
too.
I think basically a lot of Hong Kongers feel that the CCP is a colonial power.
Yeah.
I mean, technically what the CCP is doing in Africa is really different in the sense of they're not bringing in their own troops and taking over and doing management themselves the way that they're doing it in Tibet and Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang and Hong Kong. Like they're doing it in a very different way of influence.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over your shirt.
Oh.
That's actually pretty good. So you know,
how long had you been planning that one?
A couple years.
You're just waiting for Matt to buy.
I bought the shirt in August.
I know. I made sure the store had it.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
And so when you were there, you would see it. And you buy. I've been studying. I've been using psychohistory to analyze your character and plot the course of history.
Wow.
Psychohistory, is that the thing?
Harry Seldon Foundation.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not just talking crazy.
So this is another, like, possibly... Oh, but you've read Foundation, so that wouldn't be...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Highly recommend.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things that the CCP is doing in these other countries that are not directly colonized is set up their like unique systems of control that haven't really been done before and that the European powers never did. So it's less clear what's going on because there isn't really a good name for it. It's like you call it influence, but you can't really call it colonization because it doesn't fit what people think of with that word.
You mean like actually taking over the government, that kind of thing?
Right. And so, you know,
I don't know. They basically kind of have. And anyways, like a lot of African analysts, like people in Africa, are calling it that. So I'm
like, I think they're calling it like a new kind of
neo-colonialism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like because you need a new term to describe it, and because you've got things like basically China propping up a dictator or a sort of president for life type person, meanwhile installing surveillance and control mechanisms through technology. So you've got, for example, sort of smart cities with, Huawei technology. You've got smartphones that can be tracked with Huawei technology, data from these surveillance mechanisms given to the people in power. And at the same time, China is extracting often resources like raw materials from these countries, like the way it gets cobalt from the DRC to use in batteries and whatnot. And a lot of times these mines are run by Chinese companies. So in that sense, it's a bit like colonialism. But because China's technically not controlling the government, they're just offering the government mechanisms of control that are, designed by China or Chinese companies. Like it feels different in that sense.
I mean, but you also have the political control where then these countries have to support China on the greater political stage, right?
Right, like the United Nations.
So some people have compared this to like the tribute system that existed in, pre-CCP China, where like different emperors would consider, like, say, countries in Southeast Asia or East Asia to be like part of their tributary system, where they would get some of the protection of being associated with the dynasty, but not like the emperor wouldn't directly rule over these other countries.
Right. And I think there's some similarities. I would say what we're currently seeing is more predatory.
Compared to like having a massive army and being like, hey, you can pay us for protection.
Well, there was that, right? I mean, during the Chinese dynasties. But at the same time, there was a lot of interest in Chinese culture, things adapted from Chinese culture in these tribute countries.
This was largely before Dream of the Red Chambers came out. That was like when people were like, maybe this culture isn't like so hot.
In the 1700s.
No, that's when everyone was really flocking to China.
Right. No, and I'm not saying that the tribute system was great, because you basically reduced the independence of a lot of these Southeast Asian countries, right? Like to be king of a Southeast Asian country, you had to get permission from the Chinese emperor, essentially. So, you're basically losing independence. But that's what we're seeing in Africa, for example, right? Out of 54 African countries, 49 of them are in debt to China in terms of loans. And almost every single one of them is under some significant amount of pressure to be tributary to some degree, whether it's resources or United Nations votes, infrastructure, whatever it is. Like, they've got this. And now there's that report that you wanted to discuss, Shelley, from Safeguard Defenders.
Yeah, although that's a little different because so this report is called 110 Overseas.
Shelley, I just need to make sure you only looked at the cover of this report.
Oh, yeah, I didn't read it at all.
Okay, good.
I don't know what happens inside the report.
This is what I want.
But the report is called, Chinese transnational policing gone wild. So, judging from that cover,
transnational policing gone. So it's like the police officers are like on the beach lifting up their shirts.
It's a Beijing bikini.
No, yeah.
Oh,
that's a good one, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Oh man, now I'm having flashbacks to going back to China and in the summers.
Oh, the guys with like their wife beaters rolled up here, and they're like squatting on the ground playing chess. That's a classic.
And if
China.
by like those guys you mean my grandpa, yes.
Yes, I was specifically talking about your grandpa.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think he usually did that.
Just gotta say, don't knock it till you try it. Hot summer day.
Roll your shirt up.
Roll your shirt up.
Under your armpits, let it all hang out.
It's a whole new level of comfort.
Mm.
It's one of the things that makes the human experience a 3 out of 10 stars.